Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review the first story of season 14 of Doctor Who, which is Tom Baker's third season, The Masque of Mandragora, starring Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen. Right, okay, the basic plot of this story is as follows. An encounter with the living energy structure known as the Mandragora helix leads the TARDIS to 15th century Italy. Between palace intrigue, the machinations of a sinister cult, and a rogue fragment of helix energy, the Fourth Doctor and Sarah have their hands full. There is not much time, for when Mandragora swallows the moon, it will be time to strike. Okay, that's the basic plot of The Masque of Mandragora. Okay, The Masque of Mandragora. Well, you know, this story I think, often gets a very mixed response from what I've heard from a few people. I have asked a few of my friends what they think of this story, and they both, well, sorry, both, they all kind of give a generally mixed reception. Some people like it, some people aren't so hot on it. It's not considered to be an awful story, but people just have very mixed reactions to it. And I'm kind of unsure about this one. This story was kind of perplexing to me because I just didn't really get much out of it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be I'm sorry to be a downer, but unfortunately, I just didn't really get into this story. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not horrible. It's not awful. I don't hate the story. It's not terrible. To me, it's just incredibly talky. Most of this story, all four parts of this story, are very talky. There's very little action in this story. I mean, there's a few good sword fights and there's a decent climax, but beyond that, nothing. I just don't really care for this whole story about them trying to swallow the moon. Like, what? It comes out of nowhere. It doesn't do it for me. And I mean, the idea of the Mandragora helix the Mandragora helix is quite cool, but I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't go anywhere. I just don't think this story goes anywhere. I think there's too much talking, and this is a 4-part story. It's only 4 parts long, but it feels longer. It really does. I just couldn't get into it. I mean, my friend Jack the Film Fanatic, he loves this story. I mean, this is in his favourite season of the show, so I'm not surprised he loves it. And I'm sorry, Jack, we are going to disagree on this one. But I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nice aspects to the story, like the cult vibe of it. I mean, it kind of reminded me a bit of the Demons, which was nice, and the cult stuff was really interestingly done. It's a well-filmed story. The production values are great for this story. I like the look of the sets. I mean, the medieval sort of castle looks really cool. They actually shot this story in a village in Wales at the time, and they tried to make it look like 15th century Italy, and they did a great job. The cast are decent, I would say. Of course, it goes without saying that the Doctor and Sarah Jane are both brilliant. Tom Baker as the Doctor, he's once again great. He's very funny in this story, particularly when he evades his own execution. There is a moment when he uses his scarf to trip up one of the guards, and then he runs away, which is quite funny. And Tom Baker's just generally pretty funny in this story. He's really good. Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane, she's very good, although I'm getting sick and tired of companions being hypnotised. Can we please think of something else? It's getting very repetitive. And, you know, I'm not saying I thought this was a bad story move, but I've seen this so many times before. We need to get away from this sort of hypnotism. It's just overused. It's overdone. I'm tired of companions being hypnotised. We can do something else with the companions. I mean, the fact is, Sarah Jane is not going to be with us for much longer. She's in the next story, and then she leaves. Well, until, you know, further notice. Sarah Jane will be back. She's going to be in the next story, but then after that, she leaves until the Five Doctors, and then she's back in the David Tennant era briefly. But the next story will be her last regular appearance. But I think she does a good job, and I like her costume in this story. She's always very engaging. The supporting cast are good. I think the villains are quite good of this story. I'll give them that. Count Federico, he's quite good. He's a decent villain, I would say. Hieronymus, I think that's how you say it. Hieronymus, yeah. He's the person that kind of leads the cult, and he's quite menacing in his moments. And yeah, those are the sort of good. They're the good villains. Captain Rossini, he's also very good. Guilano is very good. The supporting cast are good, and as I say, there are some entertaining action scenes. There's some good sword fights in this story, although there's not many of them. Again, it's the pacing of this story. This story is just boring. I couldn't get into it. I'm not saying it's terrible, but it's boring. It's dull for me, and I just really wanted there to be a bit more excitement. It was a very unexciting, kind of forgettable story, really. Not the most inventive script, I must say. The script, which was written by Lewis Marks, not the best. It's a very under-average script, and I think the script could have been a bit stronger. And it just takes too damn long to get going. And the story, I was waiting for the story to grab me. I was waiting for it to provoke my interest, but it didn't. It never did. And I just can't get into it. And I'm really sorry if that is... I'm sorry to put a downer on this. If you like this story, that's fine. I'd love to get a discussion going down below, and we'll talk about it. But I just couldn't get into it. It's not badly directed. It's directed okay by Rodney Bennett, but again, you could tighten up the pacing, and there's not really much that's scary about this story other than the cult side of things. Which even then, it's not like a classic horror story, which Series 13 had a lot of with the Brain of Morbius. But I mean, I've seen worse and I've seen better. It's a very mediocre story for me. I like the costumes and I like the look of 15th century Italy. That's great. But for me, it's the story itself is just not very interesting. The pacing drags for me. It's too damn slow for its own good. I like the performances enough, but I really just didn't care for this story. I really didn't. There could have been more excitement. There really could have been. And there's just too much talking. I mean, there's this whole spiel about Gelano and his uncle wanting to kill him because, you know, he wants to take the throne or something. You know, there's like this whole Hamlet vibe going on. And I know what people are going to say. I mean, obviously Hamlet inspired The Lion King, and that did the story a lot better than this does, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Gelano's not a bad character, but he doesn't go through any sort of major character arc in this story. There's not much. There's just not much going on in this story as far as I'm concerned. But if you happen to like it, that's fine. It's your opinion. You're perfectly entitled to it. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't have a lot else to really say about this story. I think it's a very poor way to start the season. It's not terrible. It does have its moments of entertainment, and it does look great. The spectacle of the story is brilliant. The production design, you know, top marks there. But it's the script itself could have been a lot better. And I'm sorry if this is going to come across as a disappointment, but it's just my opinion. I'm being perfectly honest how I feel about it. It's not a story I'm going to rewatch. That's for certain. So, just to wrap up, I will give this story I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, this is a very divisive story. This story definitely gets a very mixed reception in the Doctor Who community. So, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm the only one that doesn't think this story is great, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. I couldn't get into it. You know, again, I will respect people's opinions. If they like it, that's fine. Good for them. So, next time on Doctor Who Review, we look at The Hand of Fear, which is the second story in this season, and it is, of course, Sarah Jane's final story. Well, final regular story. Of course, she will be back in the Five Doctors and the David Tennant era, but until then, the next story is her last regular appearance. And bearing in mind, she's been with us for quite a while. She's been with us since the end of John Pertwee, so you know she's had season 11, 12, 13, and then the first 2 stories of season 14. So that's a pretty damn good run. I mean, you know, that's nothing to be sorry about. And she is my favourite companion, so it'll be sad to see her go. But I know she's going to come back, so it's not that sad. But next time, The Hand of Fear. The Hand of Fear. So, until then, thank you very much all for watching this review. Please comment down below if you agree or disagree. Let's get a discussion going. And stay tuned next time when I review The Hand of Fear. So, until then, I am Mr. TARDIS11. See you next time.